Hey guys, it's Katie here with Life the Mundane. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm excited to jump in and tell you guys all about Susan Bauer's Story of the World curriculum, history curriculum for homeschooling. And we're going to be talking about what I feel like are the pros, the strong points of this curriculum, what I feel like are some of the weaker points of this curriculum, and also addressing that ever important question that I have seen a lot on the internet and have been asked a lot, and that is, what should Christians know about this curriculum before they decide whether it's the right fit for them or their kids? So let's get started. So first off, if you're new to my channel, welcome. I post videos every Wednesday and Saturday on making the most of the little moments in homeschooling, home management, parenting, and everything in between. So if those are things that interest you, I would love if you would take just a quick second and subscribe down below. Also drop comments. I love to meet new people and new viewers that are watching. So jumping into the curriculum. This is what it looks like at its core. Story of the World is world history. It is not U.S. centered, and so I like the fact that it gives my kids an entire view of world history and not just U.S. history. We are covering U.S. history, and we will do that at a later year. But this is a full 4-year curriculum if you used it the way that they recommend. The first book covers from the earliest nomads to the last Roman emperor. The second book covers the Middle Ages, the fall of Rome to the rise of the Renaissance, and so on and so forth. And the fourth book goes all the way up to current times. So you can see there's a wide variation in topic there. Each book is meant to be a 1-year course. That being said, my brother, my younger brother, who is in high school, actually read all 4 in a year, just because they're a little bit easier reads for high school. It's still a lot of great information for them, but he was able to just do 1 each quarter, and that worked out really well for him. So there's a lot of flexibility with that, and we'll get there in just a second. But basically, this is the textbook that you need. This is what you're going to read to your kids, or they can read on their own if they're older, but I love to read it out loud even if they're old enough to read it. And so you're going to read this out loud, and then they have activity books that can go along with the book. This is book 3's activity books, but basically you can see it's quite large. This is optional, but definitely an awesome resource. It has discussion questions for each chapter. It has additional books that you can get from the library to flesh out different topics. It has maps in the back. It has activities and games and all sorts of fun stuff, coloring sheets and things like that, notebooking activities. This is where you're going to get a lot of meat in this curriculum. We did not use it as much this year because of moving. We were kind of trying to get to more basics. So we primarily used the text itself along with some YouTube videos to supplement. So if there was something my kids were really interested in, we would pull up some YouTube videos and learn some more about that. Or also on Amazon Prime. I just posted this on my Facebook page yesterday. But on Amazon Prime, they have a show called Animated History for Kids with Pippo. And it is a really fun animated history. It's what it sounds like, an animated history. But I felt like the episodes line up really well with the chapters of Story of the World, at least for the first book. So it was fun to be able to watch those alongside. Now, that is not an overtly Christian show by any means. So parents, use your discretion, watch with your kids. That's what I do. I watch with my kids. If I see anything, we talk about it. But so far, I haven't found anything super offensive or whatnot. So some of the pros for this particular curriculum is that, 1, it can be used with the entire family. And I always like it when there's a curriculum that I can use as a read aloud to all my kids, no matter their ages and stages, and then they can just do additional work on their own depending on what level they're at. And this is definitely one of those books. So that's the first thing, is that it can be done across the board. The second thing, like I said when I was showing you guys the curriculum, is that they do have these awesome activity books that give you everything you need to supplement. Along those lines, this is a very popular curriculum. So there are a lot of moms who have gone before you and done this work, and really creative ones too. So you can Google any given volume of this history and can find tons of websites with activities and timeline cards and other additional supplements as well. You could do that instead of the supplemental book, but the nice thing about the supplemental book is that the activity book is just that it's all in one place and you don't have to go searching and printing and whatever. Also with the supplement book, in the back, all those activities, those coloring sheets, those maps are all able to be reproduced for your immediate family. I don't think it's for co-ops or anything like that, but for your personal family, you can do that. So there's no need to go out and buy a copy for each kid. So cost effective wise, it comes out fairly inexpensive. The second benefit is that it has short and easy to follow along chapters. The chapters themselves, we do a chapter, each day that we do it. We don't do history every day. We do it about 3 times a week. And so we're able to do a chapter at a time. But when my kids were really little and we started this, we just did about a half a chapter. But they're broken up into small enough sections that you can easily stop at a section and then pick it up next time if you would like to go at that pace. Or if you'd like to go slower, maybe not because your kids can't take in that much information, but because maybe you're doing that many activities from the book. Another thing I will say about the activity book is that they give you way more activities in supplemental books than you could possibly do for one chapter. I mean, if you did everything in the book, it could take you 2 or 3 years to get through one book. So I recommend picking and choosing what works best for you, time-wise, material-wise, what you think your kids are most interested in, and just kind of noting that on the side. Third pro is that it comes with audio. You can purchase audio CDs separately, and you can use those in your car or when their kids are going to bed, or maybe you read it during one point in the week and then the second part of the week they re-listen to it and do their coloring sheets. Whatever it is, it's a great way to review it for their kids to hear it over and over again. How awesome is that to be able to hear history over and over and be able to really absorb it and own it? And so that is a big benefit to that. The fourth pro is that it gives you a really great overview of history. Guys, this is not meant to bog you down in names and places and dates as much as it is to give you this overview. So yes, all those dates and names and places are in there, but it's to give you a wide overview of world history so that as they're getting into the older stages and they're studying this stuff more in depth, or as they're going through some of these extra books within the activity book or whatever it might be, they have these hooks to hang that information on. Building those brain connections is all about connecting something they already learned to something new that they're learning, and that's what solidifies those brain connections. This is exactly what we're doing. We're giving them this overview of world history, and then we're going to tie in those connections to give a deeper understanding later on. So we're going wide right now, and then we'll go deep. So some of the cons of this / the concerns. I wouldn't actually personally consider all of these to be cons, but these are concerns that I hear frequently and I wanted to address them the best I can. I am not an expert in this. I have only gone through volume 1 of this. I have friends and family I trust very dearly who have gone through all 4, but I want to be clear that I have not personally gone through all 4 of these books yet. So maybe there is something I'm missing, but from what I can tell you, this curriculum has some things that are common objections that come up with it. One of the concerns that I hear frequently is, should Christians be using this? Is this a Christian curriculum? And they're very concerned in particular with how often in the book it references other gods, Greek mythology, that kind of thing, okay? I've never seen it say that this is true. They say the Greeks believed in XYZ. The Romans had many gods and they believed in XYZ. And there is a lot of biblical history interspersed throughout this book. You've got the Israelites coming out of Egypt. You've got all these different things here. It's not an exhaustive biblical history. I would trust that for your Bible time. But it definitely has that in there. So I want to say that up front. But one thing people have an issue with is how much they talk about other gods. Here are my thoughts on that. Take it or leave it. But I think it's an important thing to teach your kids about this. You may decide you want to wait till they're older or do it younger, whatever. And that's your parenting decision. I would never infringe on that decision. But I do think it's important, and I will take a stance to say that it's important to teach our kids about this part of history. One, it's a huge part of history. I mean, a good chunk of history in any location is based on their religious beliefs. And that's how they decided, that's how they decorated their structures and their architecture. It's what influenced food and drink and reading and education and all these things. So it's an important factor just history-wise. It's also an important factor for them to understand the Bible. The beliefs in other gods was a huge driving force all throughout the Bible. I mean, you can see that where it's any history at all on these topics of these other gods that these nations believed in is kind of dangerous, in my opinion, because they're not going to understand the biblical historical context of the Bible. They're not going to understand why is, Paul addressing these other gods, why is he addressing these issues? So I just think it's important to touch on that topic. How much you want to touch on it, what age you want to touch on it, That's up to you as a parent. I always say you can read it. If you're not comfortable with the direction it's going, you can edit. But I haven't found anything offensive. I have just explained to my kids, I just take a second and stop and say, okay, so you know what we're getting ready to read about. You know, we're reading this story about this Greek mythology. We know that is this true facts like the rest of the history we've been reading, or is this a story? And they go, it's a story, it's not real. And so we have an opportunity to talk about that. And that's never been an issue for us. Some say that there's a lot of other great options out there for biblical history. I've heard, not used, but I've heard that Mystery of History, which is definitely a very, very, very biblical based history, is a great way to go. And why would you choose this when you had the other? But the truth is, this was cheaper. This was more geared towards the ages that my kids needed. That one starts more like 3rd grade and up. This one I could use for the whole family. It was engaging stories. It was something that the kids were into and I was into. And the fact is, I didn't mind if I needed to edit. So far, I really have not needed to edit. But if I did feel the need to edit I have thrown in extra remarks. If I felt the need to do that, I didn't feel like that was a big deterrent. We may use Mystery of History in the future when my kids are a little bit older, but for now, this is what we have loved to use. So anyway, so that is kind of my thoughts on that part of it. As far as the part people have objections because this book starts from the nomads on. And a lot of people say that it should start at creation and it should start at Genesis and all that. But that is all biblical history, which my kids get in Bible. And we go over that extensively. It does not start with like cavemen or anything like that. It's just talking about the nomads going from place to place until they settle. And so I think that, you know, I've had no issue with that. But that might be something you have an issue with. And I want to let you know that ahead of time. It starts with the nomads. It does not start, you know, Noah's Ark, Tower of Babel. It doesn't get into that. But there is a lot of biblical history interwoven all throughout it. And so I like the fact that it helps my kids gain the context for some of that biblical history within world history. So it's not that the Bible happened a long time ago and it was a separate thing, and history happened a long time ago and it was a separate thing, but it helps me overlap and see, okay, this was going on, and we know about this from the Bible. At the same time, these other historical events were going on. And I think that that's super important and helpful for kids to grasp and understand. Okay, so other cons, just real fast. The fact that the audio is available. I love the audio. It's a huge pro, but it can also be a con if you do like to interject a lot, edit, cut things out, some things like that. I've heard that if you're doing some of the later ones, like book 3 and 4, that there can be a little bit more violence because guess what? That's part of history. Like I don't edit it out of the Bible. Probably not going to edit it out of history. I have not personally read it, but I know that there are some parts where they've said it's a little more intense for young ears. So just be aware of that with the audio, that you may want to be sure that you're okay with your kids listening to it when you're not in the room, because you can't as easily, edit when they're listening to it. But you could do it in the car and pause it and things like that. So just be aware of that factor. And then the third and final thing is just that is I have heard, again, not personally seen any of this, but I've heard that there are some small potential errors or discrepancies in dates that I have seen online. I've just seen these reviews. I've never heard this personally from people who have gone through it. But they said that, a date might be off by 4 or 5 years here or there. To address that, I don't know that that is even true. But even if it is true, I would say that, or within any history curriculum, you're going to find discrepancies as far as dates go on things. And that this book in particular is really not heavy on trying to enlist dates and names and things like that. Like I said, it does not mean that it's, just frivolous. It is very factual. It is very thorough. But if there are a few dates that are a little off, I don't see it to be enough to change it personally. Obviously, I have taken all these factors into consideration and have decided to choose this for myself and my family. We are going to be going into volume 2 next year, and we're really, really excited about it. I did want to be upfront, though, with you guys about some of the factors that you might want to consider if you're thinking about this, because I do know that these factors in particular have been the very factors that have made people decide not to do it. And that is perfectly fine. That is the beauty of homeschooling, is that we have the freedom to pick and choose our curriculum and to choose it off of the things that we feel are the most important. So just hopefully some things to help you decide what you want to do. And then hopefully you guys can pick. And I would love to hear if you are doing Story of the World. Let me know what you're using, what volume you're in. If you have any favorite resources you like to use, I would love to hear that in the comments. I hope this has been helpful, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.